Who's there?
Joe. Joe who? Joe Mama. Ah! Hey guys, what's up? And today we are going to be ranking the episodes of the Bad Batch as well as giving my percentage that I would give the show. Now, generally, I actually liked this show a pretty good bit, you know? It's definitely a flawed show, like there was a bunch of filler episodes and some other problems in there, but I think it's gotten a little bit too much hate, like, you know, not too great, but also not too bad. Now, since I'm sure some of you guys probably haven't seen the show yet, go to this time for the percentage that I would give the show. Also, remember to leave your ranking of the Bad Batch episodes down in the comments below. Also, remember, I'm trying to get to 100 subs by 2022, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, and let's go ahead and get started. In last place, we have Episode 6, Decommissioned. Now, this is another one of the filler episodes, and as I mentioned earlier, that is definitely one of the biggest problems of this show, is the filler episodes, and I think this one was easily the worst filler episode and the worst episode of this show, mainly because the Martez sisters are in this episode, and I hate them, you know? They were in Clone Wars Season 7, they took up a third of that show, and that was just a terrible arc, and they're terrible characters, and I hated them in this episode. I mean, this episode maybe could have been, like, okay without them, but since they were there, it was just complete garbage. So yeah, this is just another mission for Sid that doesn't really have anything special about it. The Martez sisters were here, and I hate them, so overall, this was a really bad episode. In 15th place, we have Episode 13, Infested. Now, the worst thing about this episode is that we just got a bunch of amazing episodes. Like, I think Episode 8 through Episode 12 were all really, really great, you know? There's a lot of action and important things going on. And then you have this episode, which is just another filler episode. This one is even worse than most of the other filler episodes because it kind of just feels really out of place, you know? Like, the other filler episodes, they took place in the middle of the season where, you know, they were still trying to figure out what they were gonna do with the show, so I can kind of forgive them for that. But this episode is retarded that it even exists because it is right in the middle of all of the action, you know, and it is just really bad, okay? There's the stuff with the bugs and everything, and, you know, they were okay, I guess they were kind of interesting, but this episode is just so out of place. It's a really bad filler episode, and I do think it is one of the worst episodes of this show. Stop! If you are watching this video, remember to comment down below because the person with the best comment in this video will get a shout out in the next video. Here is the person with the best comment from the last video. Pretty nice. And let's continue. In 14th place, we have Episode 3, Replacements. Now, on one hand, this episode is kind of interesting because I really like the stuff with Crosshair, okay? Like, there was some cool stuff with him and, like, the really early stormtroopers and stuff, you know, going in and killing a bunch of innocent civilians and stuff. So that half of the episode was really good, but on the other hand, the stuff with the Bad Batch was just so unbelievably bad and boring and pointless, and it's just so stupid that this show is about the Bad Batch, but really they can't really do much of anything with those characters. I mean, a lot of these episodes, they're hardly even in it, you know, and they don't do anything interesting. And it's like this with most of the Disney Plus shows, you know, like, you know, they're called something, they're about a character or a group of characters, but then they end up being about something completely different because there's really nothing they can do with those characters, so they end up just having to put them into a situation or something. And it was very apparent in this episode that they did not have enough stuff for 16 episodes. So yeah, I like the stuff with Crosshair and everything, but the stuff with the Bad Batch was just really boring and really not that good. In 13th place, we have Episode 5, Rampage. This is, of course, another filler episode, and it is probably one of the less good ones because it's just, it's a filler episode. I mean, all these filler episodes, they just don't need to exist, and they just make the show longer and pointless, and I don't like the filler episodes at all, really, but this one is a little better than a couple of them because it does have a Rancor in it, and I thought that was kind of cool. Also, Bib Fortuna was in this episode for a brief moment, so that was kind of cool. So this is another filler episode. It is not a good episode, but there are a couple little things here and there that I didn't think were too bad, so I didn't think it deserved to be at the very bottom, In 12th place, we have episode 7, Battle Scars. Now, the best thing about this episode is, of course, Captain Rex, and it is really cool that we got to see Captain Rex in this show, because honestly, he's more interesting than the Bad Batch themselves, and that is really stupid, but he was cool in this episode. I liked him in this episode, so there's that. The other thing is that you have Wrecker, and the inhibitor chip is making him go evil and stuff. So there was a nice little action scene with him and everything. And I liked Wrecker up until this point, he had a cool character arc and stuff going on. But after this episode, they did literally nothing with him. So that was kind of stupid. But the reason this episode isn't higher is because while I do like Rex and I did like the stuff with Wrecker, I just thought this episode was very slow and very boring, While it definitely had potential, I just don't think it really lived up to that potential. In 11th place, we have episode 14, War Mantle. Now, this one, of course, has Captain Rex telling the Bad Batch that they have to go and find Gregor, right, and break him out of the prison and everything. So it was kind of cool to see Gregor, in the Bad Batch, right? He's not my favorite character or anything, but he is a familiar character, so that was kind of cool. Also, you had the, really early stormtroopers, and I kind of like that design and everything, and it's just kind of, unique and interesting. So I like that they were in the episode. And of course, Hunter does get captured at the end of this one, so that was pretty big. So while a lot of important things happened in this one, and I know some of you guys probably really like this episode, it just didn't do it for me. I mean, I just didn't think it was too entertaining, and at the end of the day, it's definitely not a bad episode, but it's just not my favorite either. In 10th place, we have, episode 10. Well, that's kind of funny. And this one is called Common Ground. Now, this is another filler episode, but I liked this filler episode more than pretty much all of the others, because, I don't know, I just thought this one was pretty entertaining, I liked the Separatist general and everything, and I thought there was some cool action in here, and this one kind of did take place right in the middle of a bunch of other episodes that were really good, so that might have made me like it a little bit more. Oh yeah, and then there's also some stuff with Omega, and they're kind of finding out, okay, what's her, ability and stuff with the strategies, So while this is a filler episode, it was a good filler episode, so generally, I have to put it higher. In 9th place, we have episode 2, Cut and Run. And the biggest thing, of course, here is the nostalgia for the OG Clone Wars fans, just like yours truly. Because you, of course, have Cut and Sue, and, they're not, my favorite characters ever, but they are from, Season 2 of the Clone Wars, and that just, brings me back, that gives me nostalgia and stuff, so I like seeing them in here. Also, there was some cool stuff with the Bad Batch in this episode as well, some action scenes and stuff. So this episode really isn't anything too special, but there was some cool nostalgia, some cool stuff with the Bad Batch, and also this was still at the very beginning of the show, so it was still running pretty strong, I would say. In 8th place, we have episode 1, Aftermath. And this is just a really great pilot to the show. For one, I loved the stuff with Order 66 and everything. I mean, that was just really interesting and stuff. And if you, of course, had young Canon Jarrus, who I actually didn't know who it was when I watched the episode, but then I found out later who that was, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, And this is an hour-long episode, which is kind of cool from an animated show like this, because obviously with the Clone Wars and stuff, you're used to it being 25 minutes or whatever, and this was an hour long, so that was really cool, And at the end of this episode, you have the a big fight scene with Crosshair and everything, so I really liked that. But with all that said, this was a great long pilot. I like the stuff with Order 66, and the stuff with Crosshair at the end was really nice as well. In 7th place, we have episode 4, Cornered. And I just really liked Fennec Shan in this episode. I mean, I think she is a pretty cool character, you know. I liked her in The Mandalorian, and I also liked her in this show. And this episode is, of course, all about her, you know, and there's a big chase at the end of this episode. That was a really cool action scene, you know. And then I'm also pretty sure that this is the first episode on that planet where they spent most of the show, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, I really liked Fennec Shan and the chase and everything, and this is just generally a really good episode. In 6th place is episode 16, Camino Lost. Now, on one hand, this episode is pretty entertaining because you had some stuff with Crosshair and everything, and, you know, it's kind of like, okay, is he with the Bad Batch? Is he not with them, you know? And there was some nice stuff with the Bad Batch trying to, you know, like, escape from the wreckage of Camino and stuff. But on the other hand, this is the finale of the show. Not just the finale, but part 2 of the finale. So this is supposed to be like the most climactic point of the entire show, and basically all it is the Bad Batch, you know, trying to escape from the wreckage of Camino, you know, and I guess they talk to Crosshair a bunch, but I just don't think that this episode was really good enough for the finale. So, while I do think this episode is entertaining, it is also very disappointing, so I really could not put it anywhere near the front of the list. In 5th place, we have episode 9, Bounty Lost. And Cad Bane is my second favorite Star Wars character in existence. I mean, I love him so much, and obviously, I'm gonna love this episode a lot, because he is in this episode so freaking much, okay? Like, he is in this a lot. And I really like Cad Bane and all the stuff with him. Cad Bane versus Fennec Shan, that was pretty cool. You know, you had like the stuff with the naked Kaminoan, which, I mean, I have a new fetish now, not gonna lie.
Don't kill yourself. Nobody likes you.
Whoa, that was kind of weird. Never say that again, you piece of shit. But my one problem with this episode is how Fennec Shan, she kept beating Cad Bane, like, throughout the whole episode, and that was just kind of stupid to me, because obviously, Cad Bane, at least at this point in the Star Wars timeline, he is literally the most powerful bounty hunter in the galaxy, and he's just getting defeated by Fennec Shan, and I thought that was a little bit stupid, but even with that said, I mean, come on, it was Cad Bane, this episode was really good, and overall, one of the best episodes of this show. In 4th place, we have episode 8, Reunion. And this was the first episode where I was like, maybe this show is actually gonna be good, because this episode was so awesome, okay? Obviously this is the continuation of episode 7, you know, on that, like, kind of trash planet or whatever, and you have Crosshair and all of, like, the early stormtroopers and clone troopers and stuff kind of chasing after the Bad Batch through the wreckage of the Venator ship, and that was a really cool, like, battle and everything that was going on there, you know? Like, for once, the stakes were actually kind of high in this show, and I really enjoyed that. I also love the part where they, like, broke off the engine and stuff, and it, like, really scarred Crosshair and everything, and I'm like, you got what you deserved, you piece of shit, you know? I mean, that was really epic. And then, of course, you had the reveal at the end of this episode with Cad Bane himself, and that was an epic reveal, you know? I mean, obviously, I love that Cad Bane was in episode 9, but he kept getting defeated by Fennec Shan and stuff, so I think he was probably even better in this episode than in episode 9. So yeah, I just really enjoyed this one. I think it was a great episode. In 3rd place, we have episode 11, Devil's Deer. What the hell is that? Devil's Deal. Sorry, not deer. There was no deer in this show, I don't think. But yeah, I love this episode, and it's kind of funny that one of the best episodes of the show doesn't even really have the Bad Batch in it. I mean, they're in this episode for like 1 minute or something. It's really stupid. But yeah, I mean, this episode was just really cool. I loved seeing Ryloth and Hera and Cham Syndulla and all of that stuff, you know. Obviously, all of that stuff was in the Clone Wars as well as Rebels, so that was some nice fan service and callbacks. This episode was just really entertaining and also surprising that it was so good, because it was kind of just like, you know, okay, Ryloth is cool, but it's not my favorite planet or anything, but I just love this episode. I thought it was really good, and it is one of the best episodes in my opinion. In 2nd place, we have episode 12, Rescue on Ryloth. Now, for one, I really liked Hauser. I think he was a cool clone, and it was nice to see a clone that's actually a good guy. You know, he isn't a villain, and that was pretty cool. I liked him a lot in this episode and stuff. And then also, this was just the continuation of episode 11, and it was generally just like, you know, episode 11, but a little bit better, you know, a little bit more like climactic and stuff. And you have a big mission with the Bad Batch and everything in here, so this is basically like everything a filler episode couldn't be, and I just really liked this one. But before I give my top pick, remember to leave your ranking of the Bad Batch episodes down in the comments below, and let's go ahead and continue. In first place, we have episode 15, Return to Kamino. Now this one is barely my favorite because I really like some of the ones before this, but this is like basically what episode 16 should have been. Like, this feels like a finale, you know? Stupid fly, kill yourself! I'm going insane right now. Like, the biggest thing here is, of course, the reunion with Crosshair and everything, and actually throughout this show, I didn't really like Crosshair that much. I mean, I thought he was kind of like a little bit boring, but then this episode turned everything around, and all of a sudden, I love Crosshair, you know? Like, he didn't have his inhibitor chip in at all. This was a big twist and everything, and it was really nice to see sort of a big thing going on with Crosshair, and I just love the stuff with him, you know? Also, Kamino gets destroyed at the end, and that was a pretty epic moment. So there is just some really great emotional stuff in this episode. This episode kind of feels like a finale, unlike episode 16. And at the end of the day, as hard as it is, I do think this is my favorite episode of the show. So I do think this show is really good. I mean, I love the Clone Wars so much, so obviously I'm gonna like this show a good bit just because it feels a lot like the Clone Wars, you know? Also, I like the characters in here, and there were some really good episodes. So while it definitely has some filler episodes, some bad episodes, and some problems, I still think this was a really good show. So the percentage that I would give the Bad Batch is an 82%. But anyway, guys, that does conclude this video. Remember to leave your ranking of the Bad Batch episodes down in the comments below. And as always, make sure to get lost, hit the road, take a hike, and I will see you on the next video.